Hangar Control already offers an immense amount of options for controlling your hardware and simulation variables. But it also has a couple of different options that are inside that give you even further control and allows you to expand what a single device can do. And that's through HC variables or Hangar Control variables that are custom created, or flags that are also custom created and allow you to, again, further expand the capabilities. However, monitoring these flags and variables can sometimes be a little difficult, knowing what the current value or state of a Hangar Control value or flag is. So today I'm going to show you a new feature that's coming to the next release of Hangar Control that's going to make it much easier to monitor those states, as well as we're going to walk through how to create them for those who have never seen them before. So stick around. One app designed to do it all. Hangar Control brings everything together: control bindings, hardware configuration, mod and profile management, application launching, add-ons, config files, and more, all managed from a single application. Mods Hangar goes beyond just mods and add-ons. It manages profiles, config files, text files, backups, snapshots, and helps keep your community folders clean and organized. Application Hangar launches your entire sim stack with a single click. Your Stream Decks are fully controlled through the Hangar Control plugin, while all of your other Stream Deck plugins remain active and available. Built by a simmer for simmers, Hangar Control adds new features and hardware support every week based on community feedback. It's a one-time purchase with lifetime updates, no subscriptions. You can try it for free for 5 days with no restrictions at overkillsimulations.com. Just create an account, head to your account page, download the latest version, and get started. And if you're looking for in-depth Microsoft Flight Simulator aircraft tutorials, check out my Patreon site. Links to Hangar Control and Patreon are down in the description below. Okay, so first off, as always, folks, because this comes up still, if you guys are interested in doing a 5-day free trial of Hangar Control or purchasing Hangar Control outright, be sure to go to overkillsimulations.com and create an account first. If you're wanting the 5-day free trial, you simply hit the red account button after you have created your account and after you are logged into the website, and there will be an option to download Hangar Control. Again, if you're wanting to purchase it outright, you still want to be logged into the site first with your user account and password, and then you can go to the Buy Hangar Control. If you do not log into the site first before either one, you will get an error. Okay, so now let's get into today's video. As I said, we have two different options that we're going to be discussing today: flags and variables, specifically Hangar Control variables. Hangar Control variables are a line item that you can create that Hangar Control monitors, and you can create X amount of values, really infinite number of values, to a said Hangar Control variable. So for example, you can create it as a cockpit variable, is what you would title it, give it 5 different values, and each one of those values can allow your entire control set to do something completely different. Without having to get new hardware, you can use your existing hardware and control multiple items based on that value state. And we're going to show you that today. Same thing with the flag. Now, flags are usually just an on-off toggle. You have multiple different ways in which you can control those flags. Button bindings, simulator state, all kinds of different things that can turn those flags on and off. And again, the basic premise of it is the same thing. You can use a flag to disable a control, or you can use a flag to change a layer, things like that. So let's go ahead and get into what we've got going on. Now you're going to see this very much so later on, but you can see we also have some new options up here at the top of the Hangar's profile view in our control bindings menu. You have an on-screen display, which we can drag over here. You can size, assuming that Hangar Control gets out of the way, and you can change your opacity and your sizing based on your preference. Okay, and then if you want, you can just close it here. And then you have value pop-ups, which we'll see in a minute. You can also set which display the pop-ups come up on, and again, that will make more sense to those who have never seen this before momentarily. So let's go ahead and get into this now. We're going to start our service, that way our inputs actually make it to the simulator, and we're going to go into our Bravo. Let's talk about the first part of this feature. This is where this all came from, and I want to stress that this was a user requested feature. I've said it in multiple videos, and I highly recommend that you guys use the link down in the video notes to join the Discord, as there are so many features that have been added to Hangar Control that are at your request. This is definitely a software that is built for sim users by sim users. So here, let's talk about the mode switch on the Bravo. When we turn it, we all know about this encoder if you have a Honeycomb Bravo. But if it's like, for example, for me, it's off to my left side. So I can't actually see where I'm at on this if this menu was closed. Now, I've been using it long enough that I can usually feel where I'm at, but let's say you wanted to get a pop-up. You can click this box, and now you can see we get a pop-up that tells us where we are. Now, you're not going to be able to see the second menu, but if I switch it to my other monitor, you're going to have to take my word for it. But that same pop-up is now appearing on my other monitor. And any other monitors that you have connected will show up here with their name associated with it. So that's what we've sort of done here with the variables and the flags, is we've created one of those pop-ups that will come up and tell you what the current state is. So let's go ahead and walk through creating one. We're going to use the Bravo encoder for this particular piece. You can see I currently have it unbound. Okay, and so what we're going to do is we're going to use a flag or a HC variable to determine what this encoder actually does. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do to set that up is we need to first define the variable and define a way to control that variable. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to my Moza AB6 and we're going to find a button. I think this was an old test. Yep, we can remove that. Let's clear that binding. Ooh, I don't want to clear all bindings. Yes, I do. Okay, there we go. Okay, so what we're going to do first, we need to create our variable. So we're going to scroll down to where it has our action configuration, and we're going to find HC variable. We're going to go to manage, and we're going to add. And we're just going to call this one the Bravo encoder, if I can spell it correctly. Default value is going to be 0, but we want to set our minimum and maximum range to 0 to 2, and we want it to wrap around. This means that every time we increment the variable or change the variable, it will go from 0 to a maximum of 2 and then back to 0. Now, we have a master switch which will enable or disable the pop-ups. But if you want a variable to show up on or a pop-up to show up for a variable, you need to make sure that you tell it to show on-screen pop-up when this value changes. We don't need to worry about any named value options. We're just going to simply hit OK. And we're going to go ahead and close here. Now the next step is, what do we want to do with it? Here we're going to again type Bravo encoder, so we know which one that we're using, and we want to increment by 1, and again set that maximum and minimum range. Now the reason why we also set it here, and this is optional, but it's because, for example, if you have a variable, let's say, that has 10 values possible, but you only want this particular button or switch to go through the first 5, you could set the switch to 0 to 5 and the other one to whatever you wanted. But it allows you to limit what a particular button or switch can set that particular variable to. This is very helpful if you're using like a switch box and you want it to only be able to control certain things, forcing you to use other buttons and switches as well, enhancing that cockpit experience. But we're going to go ahead and hit save here. And you can see our highlighted button has been created. Now we come back here and notice that the checkbox is off. When I depress that button, nothing happens. Now the value is changing. But now let's go to value pop-ups and enable the pop-up itself. And now you can see Bravo encoder 1, 2, and back to 0 as we had designed. You also have the on-screen display as we showed earlier, which again shows the same data. So it's really up to you which one your preference is. Now let's use that value to control what our encoder does. So we're going to come to our encoder and we're going to create a conditional operation. And the point of conditional operation is exactly the way it sounds. In order to do X command, a condition needs to be met. So we want HC variable. We can browse the variable names. We want Bravo encoder. And in here, we want the value to equal 0. And when the condition is true, we want a SimConnect event. And we're going to set this one to the heading bug. And this is going to be heading bug increase because we selected the up or clockwise. Now we're going to create another condition. And this time back to HC variable, just like we did before. We're going to browse, we're going to do Bravo encoder. And this time when the value equals 1. Okay, we're going to do a SimConnect event again. And this time let's set our altitude. Now let's see if I can remember. It's altitude underscore variable increase. There we go. And set that. And we'll leave the third one blank, just to show that you can set a blank one if you wanted to have a skip or a step. Now we're hit OK. Let's move Hangar Control out of our way for a minute, and let's come in here. So first, let's set our variable correctly. So on 2, when I turn the encoder, which I'm doing right now, we can see nothing is happening. But let's go to 1, or excuse me, go to 0. Now we can see our heading bug is turning. And when we click it again, we can see our altitude now increases. So that's just a real quick high-level overview of how this all works and some of the features that you can do with it. You can really get creative with this depending on what your setup is and what aircraft you're flying. And the beautiful part about flags and HC variables is they're not simulator dependent. You can use it for whatever simulator you want. So that's a pretty slick way of doing that. And the same principle goes for the flags. The flags is the exact same thing. When you go to create a flag, the principle is going to be the same, but instead of a button, usually you're going to have like a switch or a toggle or something in which you would be turning it off. A real cool way to do something like that would be managing layers. Hangar Control has the ability to set up layers. So consider all of our mappings here as a single layer, okay? And if we wanted to add a layer, and we'll just rename this to flag test, we can set a condition. Flag. And sure, this one's already here, we'll use it. So when this flag is on, we'll have it make sure that it sets, well, actually, let's just create a new flag. Why not? And we'll call it Bravo layer test. And again, if we want it to show, we need to make sure we do that. Flag behavior will toggle between on and off. And we'll hit OK. And then we can actually set the trigger directly from the item if we want. Helps if I scroll down. And we're going to use a hardware button. And you know what? Let's just go ahead and set that. Let's hit pick. And let's find the switch that I want to use. We're going to use 46 to toggle it to on. Then we're going to add a trigger. And we're going to do the same thing. And we're going to have it set to off. We're going to pick our button. And it's going to be 47 to shut it off. We hit OK, close, and boom. Okay? So now going back to our layers, let's set a condition for the default layer. Flag, Bravo layer test, off. And we're going to close that. So, for example, if we come back in here now, we manage our layers, notice that this one's completely blank. It does absolutely nothing. And that goes this true for the axis as well. So, we flip layer 1 on, and none of our controls should do a darn thing. So for example, let's use the autopilot master as an example. Notice that nothing is happening. Now when we flip that flag off, now we have our autopilot mode engaged. There's disengaged, engaged, there's disengaged. Flip our switch again. And notice there's no beeping, no autopilot, because now that layer is active and it's completely dead. So that's just a real quick overview of, at a very, very high level, ways that you can use flags and variables and be able to monitor what their current state is. You have the on-screen display, which I also want to state that the on-screen display can also be toggled with a button. Okay, so when you create your variable, there's an OSD option, as you guys saw at the bottom of the menu, that gives you the option to bind a toggle for the OSD where you can turn it on and off. So, you have that, you have the pop-ups, you can determine what monitor the pop-ups come up on. The OSD, obviously, you can drag, as you guys saw, to wherever you want. So a really cool way to further enhance your simulation experience and really get creative with your control setup. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Remember, this is coming in the next release. The HC variables and flags already exist, as well as the on-screen display. But this menu up here and the value pop-ups option, that is coming in the next release. So as always, folks, stay safe and healthy, consider trying out Hangar Control, and I'll see you in the next one.